أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome friends and family and strangers on this discussion of the purpose and the meaning of the month of Ramadan. And what I want to do is divide it in two parts. I want to look at the injunctions from the holy text that have brought us the instructions to observe the fast during the month of Ramadan. And then I want to expand the discussion a bit further and look at the benefits that we are experiencing and that are scientifically shown to be gained from observing the fast. But before I go there, let me first introduce the discussion by telling you or by giving you some information about the months of the year and specifically the month of Ramadan. Now, in the traditional ancient Arabian calendar, it contained 12 months. And 4 of those were holy months or sacred months in which the Arabs would not go to war. Those months would be the 3 months around the end of the year. In other words, the last month of the year, which is Dhul Hijjah. Also the first month of the year, Muharram. And also the month before the last month of the year, Dhul Qa'dah. So those 3 months would normally be the holy months. But there was also a holy month or a sacred month somewhere in the middle of the year, the 7th month, which was Rajab. So those were the 4 sacred months. Ramadan was not one of those. And the months of the Arabic year were pretty much aligned with the solar year. That's a fact. The traditional Arabian practice, even up till the time of the Prophet, very importantly, up till the time and until the end of the lifetime of the Prophet, was a lunar calendar that was aligned to the solar calendar. So in other words, if you look at the word Ramadan, the word Ramadan actually means hot and very hot and scorching. You know, that's what the word Ramadan means. So it obviously reflects a time of the year when it was hot and scorching. And then there are other months like Rabi'ul Awwal and Rabi'ul Thani. Those are other months of the year in the Arabic calendar, the traditional ancient Arabian calendar. And Rabi'ul Awwal simply means the first spring month, and Rabi'ul Thani just simply means the second spring month. So in other words, linked to the seasons, as you can then deduce. And so the months of the year were pretty much linked to the seasons. In other words, they were linked to the development or to the sun's, to the Earth's rotation around the sun. In other words, to the solar year. What happened is that this practice was abandoned somewhere in the reign of the Caliph Umar during the second Caliph. I think like 7 years into, or a few years, not 7 years. I don't think he ruled for 7 years, but a few years into his reign, he then revised this practice and invented a strictly lunar calendar. So how does it work to have a lunar and a solar calendar? Now, I have to explain this to you so that you know, we haven't been given these contextualizations at madrasa, and it's important that we understand, you know, when you are observing a practice with absolute commitment and sacredness, you need to know where does the will of Allah or the commandments of the holy text come in, and where is it that the decisions of human beings were involved. Now, I can tell you, to cut a long story short, the decision for this particular day in history to be Ramadan and not, for example, last month or the month before, is a decision that was taken in the time of the Caliph Umar. Because in the time of the Prophet, there was a lunar solar calendar. So in other words, in every 3 years or so, and an intercalation was done. In other words, a calendar month was added, which made up for the 30 days or the 10 days that were lost per year. Remember, in the lunar calendar, we lose 10 days a year with respect to the solar year. A lunar year is typically 354 days long, and a solar year is 365 and a quarter year days long, which means like approximately 11 days you would run short. So at the end of the lunar 12 months, there would still be 11 days for the solar year to be completed. And in the time of the Prophet, the practice, there's no indication that practice was changed in the Prophet. And the solar year the lunar year was made to comply or to fit into the solar year. And the practice of the Hebrew or the Israelite people in Arabia at the time was to very precisely, they've worked it out to a very fine detail, to add 3 extra months every 19 years. So the Israelites of Arabia would also use the lunisolar calendar, but they would have to add 3 months in every 19 years. And if you do that, if you add a month in every say 36 months, then you would more or less get a situation where the lunar and the solar calendars are aligned. And if you say the month of Rabi'ul Awwal, first month of spring, will indeed fall in spring, or the month of Ramadan will indeed fall in the hottest part of the year, which is generally September in Arabia. So what we then find was that there is a verse in the Holy Book that says that the months of according to Allah is 12, yes, and that is generally observed. And so the Prophet in his time also observed it, to maintain the 12 months and to have to add in an extra intercalation or an extra month every 3 years. But what happened is that the Quran does condemn the practice where the adding in of months was done willy-nilly. In other words, not for reasons of keeping the calendar aligned to the solar calendar, but to actually cause a situation where you play around with a year. Remember, at the end of the year, Dhul Hijjah, that was supposed to be a sacred month. And so if you add a month in at the end of the year, so the end of the year, the 12th month would be a sacred month, as would the first month be the first month. So between the 12th month, Dhul Hijjah, and the first month, Muharram, if you add an extra month in, you actually triple the amount of sacred months, and in which hunting is prohibited. And so the Arabs would actually play around and add months or reduce a month, and that practice was condemned in the Holy Quran. But the point I'm trying to make is that do not at all see the design of the calendar as divine. The design of the calendar, the choice to have to have Ramadan now, is not a choice that was, strictly speaking, emanates from the time of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. It comes from many years after the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. In fact, 10 years or so maybe after the Prophet's passing away, alayhi salatu wassalam, then the Caliph Umar designed a new strictly lunar calendar and abandoned the alignment to the solar calendar. And in fact, there are people today that are arguing for a return of the luni-solar calendar, because in every Muslim country there's now a need for them to implement a dual calendar system. If you go to Egypt, I spent a bit of time in Egypt, and what you'll find there is that they need to retain the Western Gregorian calendar alongside the Hijrian calendar, the Hijrah, the calendar based on Hijrah. And so it is almost like the Hijrah calendar is not self-contained because it has become strictly lunar. And you need to operate it in tandem with a Gregorian, which is Roman-based calendar. Now, what that says is that there's a deficiency in a strictly lunar calendar because many of the cycles of humanity are based on the seasons, the harvesting, the end of year. If you have a financial year as a farmer, you cannot have a financial year that does not go strictly according to the seasons, believe it or not. And everything happens according to the seasons. Your harvest is at a particular time of year, after which you close your books and you do your end of year reconciliation of your finances. And strictly speaking, it's difficult to do that in a lunar year because the lunar year does not cover the seasons neatly. And so human activity is all based on the seasons, on the cycle, the solar cycle. So what I'm saying to you is that be careful when you try and make certain things sacred which are not sacred. The choice of Ramadan this particular time and not 6 months earlier or not aligned to the solar calendar is purely a man-made choice. Let us just start with that departure point. So but I think by agreement we have adopted, by consensus or by convention, we have now adopted the solar calendar. But let me mention to you that there are Muslim people who are very, very strict according to the Quran and according to the original Asal, as they say, Asal tradition, who stick to a lunisolar calendar and who do not obey Ramadan during this particular month, because they say this particular month, if you go back in time, this would not have been the month of Ramadan in the format and the formula which the Prophet and his companions used to operate. But I can't really say that I can support that, because for me, I think there's a place for consensus and convention, and I think I take it back to the Quran. And even though we are not exactly following the same month of Ramadan which the Prophet used to follow, we've invented a purely or Caliph Umar invented a purely lunar calendar. I think we can still look at the Quran and see what is really the essence and the meaning of Ramadan, and then we can from there inform our practice, because I need to decide, do I want to formulate my practice based on exactly how it was practiced in those days? Or do I want to look at the Quran and see what is the essence of the message? So there are some people who strictly believe that Ramadan is in September, and in the Northern Hemisphere is supposed to fast during the hottest month, and that is their belief. And look, I don't hold that belief. So I think what we should do is just understand that there is this is not a matter, the choice of when Ramadan is, and that obviously affects when Laylatul Qadr is, because Laylatul Qadr is a day within the month of Ramadan. It's the night of determination, the night of apportionment, and that particular day or that particular night is somewhere in the last 10 days. And so what I'm sharing with you this information, the way that the months and the calendar works, is that you can understand that certain things, this is not the sacred part, is not at this particular time. We use this month by convention as a global community. But let me show you more where I want to be, and that is, I want to more look at the verses and what the Holy Quran speaks about this fasting, the idea of fasting. And our Creator, the Creator of the universe, our Master, Lord and Protector, our Sustainer, says, when speaking to us in this particular verse, says to us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O you who made the affirmation, fasting is prescribed on you as it was prescribed on those before you, in order that you may practice pious restraint. Let's continue. أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقون فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير لهم وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. It consists of a scheduled number of days, but for those of you sick or traveling, it is a number of days at another time. Those who find the fast strenuous should pay a ransom of food to an indigent person. But whoever does good over and above the minimum will gain even more, since fasting is good for you, if you only knew. Just stand still and just reflect on those words. A scheduled number of days. Right. Let's move to the last verse in the series. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم لعلكم تشكرون. The month of Ramadan is the one in which the Quran was revealed as a form of guidance to humanity, also of clarifications and the criterion. Whoever therefore experiences the month, let him sawm or fast for the month. For whoever is ill or on travel, there is an allotment of other days. God wants ease and not hardship for you to complete the allotment and to magnify God for that He guided you and for you to make acknowledgement. Those are instructions, brothers and sisters, the instructions that we use and that we obey when we implement our fasting. And I'm going to just get some key points in you made there. Fasting is prescribed on you as it was prescribed for those before, in order that you may practice pious restraint. Now, the beauty of the book, of the guide which we are provided with as adherents of the holy text, as adherents to the holy text, is that there's always reasoning. We are not instructed to do anything without our Creator, our Sustainer, offering us a reason, an argument in favor of. And that is the meaning of the word ayat. An ayat, or a bayan is an explanation. It is convincing you. It is not instructing you. It is offering you persuasive arguments. And here the argument that is given is لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, that you may practice pious restraint. So the meaning and the first purpose of the month of Ramadan, of this fast period of fast, is to acquire and to accomplish or to learn to be a restrained human being. You see, human beings are created without much restraint. We eat and we drink and we practice relations with women. And if there's no restraint, if food is presented to you in excess, or if women, or the opportunity to engage or to sexually be with women, if these are all offered to you in an unrestrained way, the human being has the nature to indulge in an unrestrained way. We have that propensity, we have that inclination to indulge in food and drink and sex in an unrestrained manner. And that is, if you're wondering whether that is a problem, yes, it is a problem. Because if we look at the West, at the Jahili West, at the pagan West, and I'm not talking, when I say the pagan West, I'm not referring to every person in the West. I refer to that aspect of the West that is pagan, that is detached from any value system, that is detached from rationality, that functions purely on emotion and on desire and on craving. That pagan West I want to refer to when I say to you, that pagan West has shown us what are the risks of an unrestrained lifestyle. An unrestrained lifestyle leads to great sorrow and great tragedy and great sadness. I want you to look at this particular video that I've lined up for you here, which shows the results of an unrestrained lifestyle. So this video I've taken out of a series that is on TV. It's called My 600-Pound Life. And I just use it as an example because it's publicly available media, and if I use a minute clip, and it's not illegal to bring it into the discussion. But this will show you the idea of where the problem lies. And just have a look at this.
My fear is that it could already be too late for me, that my body's too far gone already.
Paul's hit rock bottom. My son is the size of 3 men, but he only has one heart. And I'm afraid. I'm afraid of losing my kid. Me and Paul are very close, and I would say if my son doesn't survive, I will probably lose it. I don't know, but I know that I beg God all the time to let me go first.
I'm not ready to go. I have so much to live for now. So I have to do it now, because if I don't change, I'm gonna die.
You see, that is an excerpt from a series, and that series, by as a matter of interest, I think there's 12 seasons, and every season has 20 episodes, and in every episode they deal with 1 or 2 people that are suffering from the effects of overeating. And so, and I'm not judging these people, because in many cases the problems are not, the problems are somewhere else. They could be mental, they could be psychological, and in fact I feel sympathy for people who are in a position where they experience that kind of excessive consumption of food. But why I'm raising it here is that I'm illustrating to you that excessive consumption, overindulgence, are something which our Creator, the Creator of the universe, the one who has given us the Quran as a guidance and a criterion, is aware of, and has given us a month in which we are able to practice voluntary abstinence. So voluntary abstinence from food is an important aspect of developing restraint and developing the ability to say no to food and drink and also sex. So I bring you back then to the verse of the Quran where it says, O you who made the affirmation, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, in order that you may practice pious restraint. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. And the essence of being a balanced and healthy human being, the essence of that is to be restrained in your consumption. And the fasting is an amazing gift from the Almighty to give us that ability to, as a group, as a community, in solidarity, to practice that restraint. And it is a number of days, as it says here. But also what the Creator has done is He has told us that, He tells us in this verse 2:184, He tells us, but it is not compulsory on all of you. For those of you who are sick or who are traveling, you can make it up at some other time. You can have that test. You can have that test of restraint at another time. Those who find it too strenuous, who can never fast out of old age, or maybe just living on a side of the world where there's no practical way to fast a day, you can do the feeding thing. In other words, you pay food. You feed somebody that is indigent. But it is always better to fast in terms of the book here. And then it gets in this verse 2:185. The idea of fasting now is connected. Remember, the first two verses did not connect it to the month of Ramadan, which is why I've introduced this discussion by saying that we mustn't be obsessive that fasting is in Ramadan, but by convention and by popular agreement, and even though it was the second caliph and not the prophet who decided Ramadan must be this month and not 2 months earlier or 2 months later, because he started a new calendar, the Caliph Umar. Even though we cannot specifically say this particular month that we are in right now would have been the month that the Prophet was fasting in terms of his a formula or method, we still see the benefits of fasting. We still see that it is something that has immense benefits. But now here comes the verse that links it to the month of Ramadan. The month of Ramadan is the one in which the Quran was revealed as a form of guidance to humanity, also of clarification and the criterion. Whoever therefore experiences the month, let him psalm for the month. For whoever is ill or on travel, there is an allotment of other days. God wants ease and not hardship for you to complete the allotment and to magnify God for that He guided you, and for you to make acknowledgement. So it is almost like the month of Quran, the month of Ramadan becomes the month of Quran. So by agreement and by consensus, we have chosen this particular 30-day period or 29-day period, whatever the case may be, to turn this into a month of celebrating the Quran. It is a month of giving thanks to the Creator. It is a month of taqwa, because the first verse said, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, pious restraint. It is the month in which we are going to punish ourselves, in which we are going to say no to food and drink, where we are going to say no to our regular, normal cravings. But we are not going to say no for no reason. It is not simply no or restraining for the sake of restraining, because then we would merely be selfish. No, it is not a selfish act. Fasting is an act of solidarity. Fasting is an act of devotion to our Creator. We are not saying no to food and to drink because we want to be healthy. We are saying no to food and drink. Yes, it has a health benefit, but we are saying no to it because it is devotion and gratitude to our Creator for having given us the gift of the Quran, for having given us the gift of guidance, and having given us the gift of a furqan, and as the word says here, minkum shahran man kana mari bayinat min al-huda wal furqan, we have received a criterion, we have received a means of testing what is righteous behavior. And so the verse here, this particular verse, this 2:185, it links, it's fasting is prescribed because it teaches us to restrain ourselves, to learn to not be excessive or overindulgent. And as the pagans today in the West, unfortunately, are gripped or trapped in overindulgence, overspending, over-consuming, fornicating, over, lusting, and where they are caught in the grip of that type of vice. And this opportunity here of Ramadan is an opportunity to learn to restrain ourselves, not to be pagan, not to be jahils, to be noble people, to be a nation that is balanced, to be a nation that is in equilibrium with nature. Now let me add you, okay, I think I can move on a bit. I think I've made that point. Now let me just give you another point also that I want to share with you. Hunting and farming are two practices that human beings are involved in. We farm, we hunt, and we practice husbandry. As animal husbandry, we practice, we have cattle and livestock. And that is how we feed ourselves. And another point that you might have never realized or never learned is that creating 1 month of voluntary deprivation allows for the hunted animals to multiply, for the fish stocks to regrow in the ocean, for the animals on our farms to calve and to grow and to grow stronger, for the land to regain its strength. Because even in overexploiting the land, the soil, there are certain risks associated. And what we are saying is that this is a reason, this is an argument that has not been offered to you maybe, but I want to offer this as a possible benefit of Ramadan, is that a month in which we cut down drastically on our consumption is a month in which we can put some sort of relief on nature, on the land, and on the animals which we consume for food. And let me leave that also as maybe a further argument in favor of the month of Ramadan and of fasting. And remember, when we say fasting, we're not talking about permanent fasting or a hunger strike. The fasting that we practice as followers of the Holy Book, as mu'mineen, as Muslimin, is called intermittent fasting. It's a fasting during daylight hours. So it is a classic intermittent form of fasting. And today, those who research the diets of people vis-a-vis diseases that people experience have made amazing discoveries in terms of intermittent fasting. I have a family member, close family member, who is on intermittent fasting now for more than a year, or close to 2 years, I'm not sure the exact time. But in the process, he managed to stop his advanced level diabetes. His advanced level diabetes, he's the only one that I know in my close family that practice intermittent fasting. So it's a 1 out of 1 hit. He actually has overcome his problem with diabetes. And so fasting, intermittent fasting that he practices regularly, even outside the month of Ramadan, is something that has amazing health benefits. And I want to show you then another video that makes that point. This is the knowledgeable Dr. Berg, who has a YouTube channel, and I would encourage you to look at his YouTube videos. And these are his views in terms of intermittent fasting, and he actually in this video relates it particularly to the Middle East, where most people fast every year. So let's look at this video and you can tell me what you think about it.
Why do people in the Middle East have some of the lowest rates of cancer if we compare this to the entire world? Let's do a deep dive. Now, the other name for the Middle East is West Asia. Now, what's conflicting about this information is they have a very low cancer rate, but a very high consumption of sugar rate. And I've done all the videos on this where sugar feeds cancer. So the question is, how are they actually getting lower rates of cancer despite consuming so much sugar? In fact, the Middle East consume more sugar than pretty much any other parts of the world. Now, yes, they have a lot of diabetes, and they have obesity, and they have other issues, but cancer is on the low side. Now, if we take the average of how many people get cancer in the entire world, it's 198 people out of every 100,000 people get cancer. Now, if we take a look at individual parts of the Middle East, we have Saudi Arabia. 96 people get cancer out of 100,000. Yemen, 97 people out of 100,000. Oman, 104. Qatar, 107. UAE, it's 107. And Kuwait is 116 people out of 100,000 people get cancer. So you can see, if you live in these countries, you have a much less risk of getting cancer. Let's compare this with Australia. 468 people out of 100,000 get...
That's 4 times higher. That's 4 times higher. Imagine.
Cancer. They take number 1. They get first place in getting cancer. Number 2, Ireland is 374 people out of 100,000
Also
people.
almost 4 times.
Next one is Hungary, 368 people, okay, out of 100,000. And then United States, 352 people out of 100,000 people.
Did you just notice that 350 people in the United States per 100,000, 98 in Saudi Arabia, and 100 plus minus in the other countries around Saudi Arabia. And what Dr. Berg is doing here is that he actually ascribes it to the 30-day annual fast. I'm not going to play the whole video, but the deduction or the conclusion, and this is not a scientific conclusion, but this is his suspicion, and all knowledge starts with a suspicion, with a hypothesis. And his hypothesis is that the only practice that sets the Middle East apart from Hungary, Europe, Australia, America is this annual 30-day fast. And he cannot see, he sees that as the one factor that can be behind the low rates of cancer. So as you can see, to summarize that, fasting is an amazing gift from the Almighty. It is a gift that is declared as such, as a means of acquiring restraint, as a means of guarding against falling prey to the body's tendency to overconsume and overindulge. And as I've shown you in the West today, in the pagan part of the West, that type of overconsumption is wreaking havoc amongst some sections of the community. When you are depressed, you eat. And when you eat, you become depressed. So it's a vicious cycle. And you become trapped in a nightmare. But here the fast is an amazing gift to liberate us from that type of traps and problems. But the health benefits also, as we've seen from Dr. Berg's video there. So I think I can conclude here. My conclusion is what I'm offering you is that our book is commanding us with a fast. Maybe the particular day on which Ramadan starts is not so important. We have here in Cape Town and in some parts of the world, you have a dispute as to the start of the month. Some people say the month starts when the moon is sighted in Saudi Arabia. Other people say the month starts when the moon is sighted in Cape Town. Other people say the month starts when the moon is born anytime when the moon is 5 minutes old. Other people again feel that you have to go with whatever other system with Ramadan falling in September, as I've introduced this discussion. The important thing is that fasting is an important practice. It is an intermittent form of fasting that has to be undertaken for a portion of the year. We have, by agreement, by convention, adopted this particular month in the strictly lunar calendar called Ramadan as that month in which we fast. But we don't fast only for the benefits that we hold. We fast and we deprive ourselves as a form of devotion, as a form of gratitude. Because with fasting, nobody can deny, comes deprivation, and nobody likes to be deprived. But this deprivation, every moment of deprivation that you feel when you fast, is a deprivation that you do qurbatan ilallah. It is to reach proximity, to reach union, or to reach a proximity to your Creator. And so when we fast, we say to the Almighty, to Allah, thank you. We praise Him and we thank Him for having guided us to this, and we ask His strength as we proceed through this month. And I wish you all in this particular year 2022, all of you tuned into this program, please be strong. I hope you have a spiritual month, a month of elevation, a month that you will learn self-restraint. I pray that for myself and for you, and may you come out stronger and healthier at the end of this month.